Gammadda. For the people, by the people.
Hello there, very good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime News on TV1 for the News First, where the people come first. I'm Martin Satyanesan. Let's start off with a look at your headlines for this afternoon.
Ranjan Ramanayake to be released. Fuel queues emerge. Protests demanding kerosene continues for the 11th day. 2 more Aragala activists granted bail. Japan seeks to organize Sri Lanka creditors meeting on debt crisis. Norway lifts travel advisory on Sri Lanka.
On to those stories in detail. A statement from the President's Media Division on Friday noted that former MP Ranjan Ramanayake will be granted conditional presidential pardon. The statement noted that President Ranil Wickremesinghe has signed the conditional presidential pardon, the document, on Friday. It also noted that the pardon will be subject to the conditions that Ranjan Ramanayake no longer make any statement that is contempt of court and does not act in such manner. The President's Media Division said that the Justice Secretary was vested with the task of proceeding with the necessary action required for Ranjan Ramanayake's release. Moving on, Secretary to the President, Saman Ekanayake, on Friday confirmed that he signed the documents for the release of imprisoned MP Ranjan Ramanayake with permission from President Ranil Wickremesinghe. On the 12th of January 2021, Ranjan Ramanayake was sentenced to jail for contempt of court. Ranjan Ramanayake was accused of contempt of court for making a statement on judges and lawyers at a media briefing close to Temple Trees on the 21st of August 2017. Following a trial, the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka sentenced him to 4 years of rigorous imprisonment. Then the justices of the Supreme Court, Sisiradi Abru, Vijitha Malalgoda and P. Patman Surasena, delivering the verdict, said the prosecution had proven beyond any reasonable doubt Ranjan Ramanayake had committed contempt of court and his comments were intentional. The court also said that it was proven from the comments he made after leaving court proceedings on multiple occasions. The Attorney General filed charges against Ranjan Ramanayake pursuant to a complaint by retired Army officer Sunil Pereira, alleging the statement made by Ranjan Ramanayake opposite Temple Trees on the 21st of August 2017 was in contempt of court.
Meanwhile, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa visited Ranjan Ramanayake at the Velikada prison this morning.
I came to visit humanitarian Ranjan Ramanayake. We hope for his release with complete political and civil liberties. My wish is that this is the last time I meet him at a prison. I wish him strength to carry out his services to the people of this country after his release.
ඒ ජනහිතකාමී සේවාව ඉෂ්ට කරන්නට එතුමාට ශක්තිය ධෛර්යය වාසනාව ලැබේවා කියා ප්‍රාර්ථනා කරනවා.
Piat Nikeshala and Venerable Balangode Kasapatero, who were remanded for unlawful entry into Temple Trees and causing damage to his property, was released on bail on Friday. Colombo Fort Magistrate Tilnagamage granted bail to the suspects and fixed the case to be taken up again on the 12th of October.
Acting convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation, Terence Rodrigo, expressed the following views regarding the government's suppression of the Aragala activists.
Conveners of the Inter-University Students' Federation and the Inter-University Bhikkhu Federation and Comrade Ashan from the Kalani University are being detained and questioned under the PTA. The government wants to pin them for crimes they did not commit through the PTA.
Meanwhile, a group of Aragale activists from the We Are One group met opposition leader Sajith Premadasi yesterday to discuss matters regarding the arrested Aragale activists.
The government is suppressing Aragale activists by arresting them. We handed over a memorandum. We discussed as to how we can strengthen the Aragale activists. We received a positive response from him. He accepted our proposals. We are ready to carry out an island-wide awareness program to inform the public about suppression.
Reuters reported that Japan is seeking to organize a Sri Lanka creditors conference, hoping it could help solve the South Asian nation's debt crisis. However, sources quoted by Reuters stated uncertainties cloud the outlook for any talks.
A source quoted by Reuters said that Tokyo is open to hosting talks among all creditor nations aimed at lifting Colombo from its worst debt crisis since independence, but it is not clear whether top creditor China would join, and a lack of clarity remains about Sri Lanka's finances. Japan would be willing to chair such a meeting with China if that would speed up the process for addressing Sri Lanka's debt, estimated at $6.2 billion on a bilateral basis at the end of 2020. President Ranil Wickremesinghe told Reuters last week that Sri Lanka would ask Japan to invite the main creditor nations to talk on restructuring bilateral debts. He said he would discuss the issue with Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Tokyo next month, when he is expected to attend the funeral of the assassinated former Premier Shinzo Abe.
The Norwegian government has lifted the travel advisory on Sri Lanka.
The Norwegian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has cancelled the travel advisory which advised against all travel to Sri Lanka that is not strictly necessary. The travel advisory was introduced on the 11th of May as a result of violent demonstrations, curfew and a state of emergency in several parts of the country. Norwegians who plan to travel to Sri Lanka are encouraged to bring the necessary medication and make sure that hotels and transport have access to enough fuel during their stay.
The Muthurajamala terminal of Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals Limited did not deliver fuel to filling stations on Friday, but delivered fuel only for SLTB depots. The terminal has decided to restrict fuel deliveries.
Sri Lanka began unloading a shipment of auto diesel that reached its shores on Thursday. Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara said the unloading of super diesel from a delayed shipment also commenced. Reports suggested that Ceylon Petroleum Storage Terminals Limited was working around the clock to return the distribution process to normalcy. However, buses, school vans and many other vehicles that run on diesel were seen lined up at filling stations since Friday morning. One filling station received diesel stocks on Friday morning. Motorists were seen lined up at a filling station in the Kurunegala town as well. Long queues for fuel were also seen at IOC filling station in Hatton. Newsfirst correspondent said that bus operations were affected due to the shortage of fuel. Long queues for fuel were seen leading up to filling stations in the Gaul town. Reports suggested that a diesel and kerosene shortage was experienced across multiple areas.
Meanwhile, Sri Lankan fishermen are continuing to protest, demanding kerosene to power their boats.
The protest by fishermen in the fishing town of Chilau in Sri Lanka's western coast, north of Colombo, continue to protest, demanding relief for kerosene purchases for the 11th day. Many fishermen have been compelled to abandon their trade and search for other means of employment.
Minister of Fisheries Douglas Devananda says concessions will be provided on kerosene from the interim budget. We have made arrangements to provide kerosene. We will speak to the President and the Prime Minister. We will provide concessions for the fishing community. We are planning to provide this during the upcoming interim budget.
Despite the ongoing program to distribute fertilizer, the shortage in the Yala season has led to 22,000 acres of paddy field in Polonnaruwa being covered with weeds.
Farmers of the Hatamuna Farmers Organization in the Minneria Polonnaruwa Agrarian Movement lament that agrarian products required for the Yala season have not been given to them. Farmers point out that fields are largely covered with weeds. They point out that the government did not provide the fertilizer on time. As weedicides were not distributed, weeds have overgrown owing to the fertilizer that was applied.
Up next is Crime Watch.
Crime Watch.
A 39-year-old individual was stabbed to death in Matugama on the 23rd of this month. Police revealed the killing was a result of a dispute between two underworld gangs. CCTV footage of the incident has also been released by police.
Crime Watch.
The charred remains of an individual was discovered from a shop in Bibila. The deceased was identified as a 68-year-old resident of Sikuralanna in Bibila. Police noted the individual had been killed over a land dispute.
Crime Watch.
SJB MP Marikar expressed the following views at a media briefing today.
පොදු ජන පෙරමුණේ මන්ත්‍රී සනත් නිශාන්ත මාධ්‍ය හමුවක් තියලා අධිකරණයට සහ විනිශ්චයකාරතුමන්ලාට අපහාස කරනවා. එතකොට
SLPP MP Sanat Nishanta insulted the courts and judges at a media briefing. It is clear that MP Sanat Nishanta is not insulting the court and judges at a function or responding to questions from journalists. He is doing so after convening a media briefing at the SLPP office in Nelummawata. So when the media briefing is being held at the party headquarters, it represents the view of the party as well. It's not an insult from the MP alone, but also from the party. The CID is investigating all types of people who enter the President's house and temple trees. They need to investigate the statement made by Sanat Nishanta and the SLPP. It's not just Sanat Nishanta who insulted the courts and judges. It's the whole of the Sri Lanka Pudujana Peramuna.
මේක සනත් නිශාන්ත මන්ත්‍රීවරයා විතරක් නෙමෙයි අධිකරණයට අපහාස කරලා තියෙන්නේ පොට්ටු පක්ෂයේ නිල වශයෙන් අධිකරණය සහ අධිකරණ විනිශ්චයකාරවරුන්ට අපහාස කරලා තියෙනවා.
The Tax Awards competition organized by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka was launched with a new initiative to incorporate information pertaining to sustainability, creating a new corporate accounting principles in Sri Lanka.
The Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka announced the official rebranding of the prestigious Annual Report Awards competition as TAGS Awards from this year onwards. TAGS stands for Transparency, Accountability, Governance and Sustainability, and the newly rebranded awards will reflect the core values of the over half-a-century competition to also strengthen and uphold the integrity of the financial, environmental, social and governance reporting, apart from promoting the need to increase the transparency of companies which produce annual reports.
The stakeholders of corporates used to take decisions based on the profits reported by corporates. But especially during the last 4 to 5 years, focus of the stakeholders has changed to decisions based on planet, people and profit. As a national accounting body, we were really focusing on these developments in the global context and wanted to promote the same concept in the local market for the capital market development in this country.
There are hundreds of Sri Lankan families who are confined to their villages with no bridge to link them with major towns and cities. On Friday, Gammadda was able to end the misery of one of the village with a bridge linking the Velladeniya village in Kegol with a major roadway.
Velandeniya is a remote village in the Dehiovita Divisional Secretariat in the Kegol district with picturesque surroundings. More than 100 families living in this village depend on the rubber plantations to survive. When it rains, the waterway that runs across the village turns into a gushing river, forcing the residents to suspend their daily plans. For many years, the villagers and their children have been inconvenienced due to the absence of a proper bridge, and today government has stepped in to place the foundation stone for the construction of one. The project is financially supported by Mrs. Kushlani Amarasuriya.
Shifting your attention to international news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Europe faced the prospect of a radiation disaster on Thursday when a Russian-occupied nuclear plant was disconnected from Ukraine's power grid.
He added it was only due to backup electricity kicking in that the Zaporizhia plant was able to operate safely. Fires had earlier damaged overhead power lines, cutting the plant off. There is growing concern over the fighting near the complex, which is the largest nuclear plant in Europe. President Zelensky warned on Thursday night, quote, if the diesel generators hadn't turned off, if the automation and our staff at the plant had not reacted after the blackout, then we would have already been forced to overcome the consequences of the radiation accident, end quote. The damage was caused by fires which Ukraine's state nuclear agency said had interfered with power lines connecting to the plant on Thursday, temporarily cutting Zaporizhia off the national grid for the first time in its history. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered the Russian military to increase its number of soldiers by 137,000 in a total of 1.15 million servicemen amid Moscow's military action in Ukraine. Russian media and non-governmental organizations say Russian authorities have sought to bolster the number of troops involved in the military action in Ukraine by attracting more volunteers, engaging private military contractors, and even offering amnesty to some prisoners in exchange for a tour of military duty.
A concrete obelisk topped with Soviet stars, which was the centerpiece of a monument commemorating the Red Army's victory over Nazi Germany, was demolished in Latvia's capital on Thursday.
Latvia's parliament has voted to remove all remaining Soviet statues and plaques. The country has joined Estonia in bringing down World War II memorials in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Demolition machinery was used to remove the 259-foot monument. A number of large-scale bronze statues had already been removed from the monument in the preceding days.
In your sports news, Sri Lanka cricket national coach Chris Silverwood says Sri Lanka will bank on the experience of their players playing the UAE to clinch the Asia Cup title. The first match between Afghanistan and Sri Lanka will be played on Saturday.
Coaching perspective, I couldn't ask for anything more from the team and the way they approach what they're trying to do. Obviously, it'd have been lovely to play this tournament in Sri Lanka, but unfortunately it's not, and I think we've accepted that and we've embraced the fact that we have to play it here. So our mindset is now very much focused on what we need to do to compete and be successful in the UAE. I mean, a lot of the guys have got experience playing here anyway, so we will use that. And I mean, as already been said, we're here to do our best to win the tournament, so that's what we're going to try and do.
Left-hand batsman Bhanuka Rajapaksa said the team is confident of beating top teams in the tournament.
See, it's a very good opportunity for all of us. It's not just myself, but we got a great opportunity, clinch a title. So hoping that we could justify our presence over in UAE and clinch a title. And as you asked, going to second round, playing against India and Pakistan, we are very confident, and we have played against them. And for me, especially, I think the experience that I'm bringing to the side after playing in the IPL, that will make that will create a lot of good energy in the side as well.
The second of the three-match test series between the touring South Africans and England commenced in Manchester yesterday. South Africa entered the second test after a resounding victory in the first test played at Lord's. From that, we bring to